We ended up having to call the police to escort him off the premises. I love the ability to make as much money as I please, and that's what originally attracted me to this role.
Welcome back to another episode of Insurance Dudes. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Stephanie Riggins, a dynamic leader and innovator in the insurance industry. Her journey is nothing short of inspiring, and we can't wait to dive into her story.
That was a big learning lesson for me.
Seems like some of the best learnings are the ones that were the most painful.
People do love to have direction. They love to have structure. They enjoy having a leader.
Giving them the thing that's actually going to help them not be their own worst enemy.
I think 2025 is going to be a lot more of... Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Riggins, and the craziest thing that ever happened at our agency is we had a financial partner we were working with who was upset that I couldn't meet with him when he needed me to. So he decided to come pounding on the doors, making a scene. We ended up having to call the police to escort him off the premises. And needless to say, he no longer works in that field. I'm Stephanie Riggins, and I'm an insurance Dudette.
Boom! Yeah! That is crazy. You had to have him escorted away?
Yeah, he refused to leave until I met with him, and I didn't have time to, and he just showed up. So I told him he was going to have to leave, otherwise we have to call the police, and he was fine with that, I guess. So
how tall was he?
I don't know. I'm only 5'2", so to me, everybody's really tall. So
everybody's tall. Even I'm tall.
Everybody's tall when you're 5'2". Yeah.
What man would do that to a woman? Like you have to be crazy to.
They needed business bad,
They seem crazy.
They. So you say, Craig?
He, she, they, whatever. All inclusive.
All inclusive.
So diverse.
I had a run-in with an EFS.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do tell.
I lost my temper. It happens. But sort of the same thing. Coming in, like always coming in and then doing things like that, then demanding things. And it's like, whoa. And I had all this. He kept we were in the conference room, and I was in the conference room to tell him, you can't come in like this. You have to give some space, and then we'll schedule, right? Like try to schedule things. And I had this big wad of money, it was just ones or maybe twos, but for spiff, for the team. And he kept needling me in there, and it was just messing around. I got so pissed. I had this wad of money. I chucked it at his face. I picked a chair up and threw it over his head. Luckily, I didn't hit him with it because that would have been bad. I really was pissed. And then I'm like, get up. I yelled at him to get out. And then I had to leave and go for a walk. I realized I should have started the walk 5 minutes prior, but yeah.
You should have ate a Snickers 5 minutes prior. You were hangry.
Yeah, I might have been hangry too. And this is 5 years ago. This type of thing doesn't happen anymore. But
that's old Craig.
That's old Craig.
So if we had the EFS on and he told the craziest story, that would be the story he would tell.
Probably. Probably. We haven't talked since.
Shocking. Well, Stephanie, we would love to know how long you've been in the industry. What got you into this crazy business in the first place?
Yeah.
Sure. I have been in this business for 15 years. This is all I've ever done is insurance. And so as far as owning my own agency, I have been doing that since 2020. So June of 2020. So I'm 4 years into agency ownership.
Super cool. What got you into it in the first place 15 years ago?
I just happened into it. I was going to college on a full ride scholarship and ended up deciding to drop out and take a break, and was waiting tables, and met an agency owner that owned an independent agency that needed help with his kind of some admin and clerical stuff. And so I jumped at the opportunity to get out of the restaurant business and get into an office environment, and started doing some admin clerical stuff for him, and started to really enjoy um, the insurance and the binding policies part of things. So I decided to get my license because I shouldn't have been doing that stuff anyways without it. Started selling, fell in love with selling and the ability to control my income, and kind of went from there. And, you know, long story short, kind of climbed the ranks of like sales agent, sales manager, agency manager, operations manager to agency owner.
That's
So
crazy.
you saw it from
yeah, you go.
saw it from every angle, and you decided that you still wanted to do it.
Still love it. Absolutely. I think this is the absolute best opportunity out there, in my opinion.
What is
Nothing
it that
quite
you
like
love?
it. If I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not going to say I just love helping people, which I do, but I absolutely love the ability to control my income. I love the ability to make as much money as I please. And that's what originally attracted me to this role, is that I figured out at an early age when I first got into this business that I could be in complete control of how much money I make. You know, we have the opportunity to make as much money or more money than a brain surgeon, right? But the difference is that if a brain surgeon isn't using his hands and operating on somebody, he's not making any money, right?
Mm,
Whereas we can scale this industry, and we can scale this business, and we can grow and develop people, which is also very enjoyable for me, by the way.
Yeah.
And we can make just as much money and have a life of freedom and flexibility and all those things, and not be tied down to a desk all day.
I love it. So why do you think that there's a lot of agents out there that don't look at it this way?
I do think that it's just been ingrained in people for so long, and this industry has evolved so much, especially over the last 5 years. You know, this started as something completely different. You know, it was more of like an annuity. You know, you get this big book of business and you sit on it, and it gives you your renewals, and you meet with your customers here and there, and you make sure that they're happy and you keep them. And things have kind of evolved, especially as of late, into a more growth oriented new business type of model across the industry, right? And so the agents that have been able to adapt to that and figure that out have figured out that there is a way for us to really capitalize on the income and build something that allows us to have that freedom.
What do you think? It's sort of a follow up to and riding on the coattails of Jason here. What do you think is the big differentiator though between it's a very small percentage that think that way. I think that something happens or what have you. What do you think it is? Like that yeah, it's a tough market. Yeah, it's difficult to close business. Yeah, oh, our closing rate went down. Yeah, rates went up. All of these excuses that everybody uses for no growth. What's the difference?
I think it's a lot of different things. And for everybody, I think it's something different, right? So it's the ones that are chasing something, right? What is burning your fire inside of you? The ones that have a fire burning inside them are going to find a will. They're going to find a way to take it and make it big. The ones that don't have a fire burning in them, it's just, they're not going to be passionate about making something big out of this. They're just not. And I think the fire is different for everybody, right? So
Yeah.
for some people, it's just they want to see their name in lights. They love that, right? And so whether that's your name on the door or on the reports that come out, from our market leaders, it's the awards or that sort of thing. If that's what's lighting their fire, that's fine. That's what they're chasing. They're going to find a way to fuel that, right? Some
Mhm.
people, it's money, it's financial freedom, right? And so they're going to find a way, whatever roadblocks are in their way, to find the way to make the money. And that's what's fueling them. It's something different for everybody, but I really do think that some people just have a fire burning and then some just don't for whatever reason.
Some people, it's almost like they don't believe that they could do it.
Definitely.
Like they never had the success, and it's like they don't believe that they could, so they probably feel trapped. And I think like with what you're saying, what you've been saying is like there is uncapped potential. You've been able to grow. You've been able to achieve awards and such, where I don't think you have something that you don't think you can get. Like it's
Definitely.
unobtainable.
Yeah, I think it's like, okay, so I love to look at the heavy hitters, like the biggest ones out there. And I think people look at those two ways. Like I see, and I'm sure you guys see too, obviously, two different mindsets. If I see someone writing 1,000 policies a month and I'm writing 350, to me, I'm thinking, okay, if he can write 1,000, what do I have to do to write 1,000? Because I know I could do
Hmm.
that too. So let me
Hmm.
just figure out how I can hack that to do the same thing. And then I think there's another subset of agents that think, oh, he's writing 1,000, but he's got a $40 million book and business breeds business. So a lot of it's coming from there. And
Right.
he's got the money to spend and all of those things, which is really just excuses.
Hmm.
Because we can still find a way to make it, whether it's taking out a line of credit or whatever we need to do. Um, we can find a way. And so it's just, I think, two different mindsets.
We
Yeah.
we were just talking about this on a call with a bunch of agents earlier today, and it's this whole the notion of of seeing the numbers and then hacking it, right, and actually applying math to it instead of like, oh gosh, it's a lot, right? Like in the instance where you say, oh, they do 1,000 but they have all the stuff, it's taking away from what that person's done. I mean, that person did a
Absolutely.
lot of things to fail their way to 1,000 a month, right? Like it wasn't all candy and unicorns and super simple. Like they had to hack it and they
Hmm.
figured it out. And there's math. Like that's the thing that's so beautiful about our business is we have access to all the metrics, right? In fact, too many metrics, a lot that are useless. But if we understand and can identify the core metrics that are actually going to move the needle, then it's just an equation, right? And so it's not, well, I'm going to buy 10 leads and I want to write 150K. Well, no, that the math doesn't work on that, right? Like you have to make sure the math works, and then it's just follow the equation, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
So did you start with an scratch agency or did you buy existing agency?
So kind of both. I did start on a scratch contract and but I did buy a couple $100,000 worth of premium. So I only bought that little bit of premium, which honestly was basically nothing. My renewals were like, $500 a month, right? But
Yeah.
I bought the scratch contract to buy the scratch contract because at that time it was a very lucrative contract if you could gear up very quickly and
Yeah.
get off the runway really fast. So yes and no, I did buy, but there was really no renewal income. I bought a scratch contract.
Did it start over?
Started over
When
from day one.
Oh,
Woo!
that's
The
so
good old
good.
days.
Oh,
So good. So take us through that, like, because obviously in 2020, I'm pretty familiar with that contract. That's like the you have 3 months to like sell a crap ton. So how did you take over that existing book? Did it come with any agents in
Mm-mm.
the? No. Okay. So how did you start from nothing to something, and then what was your mindset going into that?
Yeah. So I look back at that time, and it was a very challenging time for me. So when I had just signed a lease on a commercial space, a 7-year commercial lease, going into this scratch contract, and I was in Chicago downstairs in the basement at our company's headquarters doing our training, and it was February of 2020. And the president comes on and is like, "Hey, I'm announcing a state of emergency. We're locking down all the airports. We're grounding flights."
Oh,
So I'm like, "Oh, great. There's a worldwide pandemic and everything was shutting down." So they let us out of school right then and there. And I
oh,
luckily got the last flight out of Chicago back home to Arkansas
oh my
before they
God.
shut down the airport. And it was absolute madhouse. And got back home and went to my new office space I had rented for, gosh, I don't know, $4,000 a month for the next 7 years. And,
Oh,
um, you know, it was in like a little shopping center, right? In like a shopping strip. There's restaurants and gyms and all kinds of things in there. And then there's my Allstate agency
God.
with my lights, and everything was shut. Everybody had closed down. Okay. Like everything, signs
Oh,
on the doors shut down. And like my sign had just gone up. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to start this whole business from scratch in the middle of a pandemic when every other business around me is shutting down.
oh my
And
God.
So that was really, it was a tough, hurdle and a challenge to get over. But I kind of, like I said, I've got 4 kids and insurance is all I've ever done. I put my entire life into this. And I was like, failure is not an option for me. Like I have too many people counting on me. So we're just going to make it work and we're going to do it big regardless of anything that comes across. So yeah, I staffed up before opening and we opened the doors on June 1st, 2020. And we got off to a pretty good start and got it rolling, pretty good within the first 6 months. And then about 10 months in, we opened another scratch satellite agency. So at that point, we had 2 scratches running side by side.
Wow.
So it was fun. It was a fun time. It was very challenging, very exciting time, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's been life changing for me.
So so you had, how many employees did you start with the first one?
I want to say 6.
6. Okay. So then they shut down everything. Were you guys all going into the office?
We were going in the office. Yeah. I told them we're coming in. I said, I'm going to put your
Nobody
desks.
died?
I said, right. Everyone's still alive. It's crazy.
Weird.
Your desks are 6 feet apart. If you want to wear a mask, you can. But like, we have work to do. We have people that still need insurance, even though there's a pandemic. And we didn't have the capabilities yet to go fully remote or to transition people remote because we hadn't even gone established. And my entire staff had no insurance experience. They were all green too on top of
Yeah,
it.
there's no way.
So in office it was, and I was kind of like, if you're willing to come in and work, then you can have a job. But if you're not, then I have no place for you here right now. So in office it was.
I love Arkansas.
That's Arkansas for you. Yeah.
Not here in California.
What happened there? Nope.
We went remote, and then like 2 months in, it was like, maybe it was like 3 months in. We were doing well for the first couple months, and then it was like sales started to dip, and I'm like, y'all are going back in the office if we need to sell. Like we're ramping up, not backwards. So then it was like some people would have to come in some here and there, and it was kind of a thing, but we still did it. But yeah, what a crazy time. So how did did all 6 people stay for those 6 months?
I mean, I think 1 or 2 dropped off in the first 3 or 4 months. A couple of them stuck another 10 to 12 months, but none of them are here today. I mean, they're all gone.
Right.
Yeah.
But it gave you, I've heard so many horror stories of scratch agencies where it's like people are falling off like flies, So I imagine during the pandemic, it's kind of a good thing because like people's like, they didn't want to switch right away, A year later, maybe so, with the people, jumping from job to job to get the higher paychecks. But
oh man, I had so much employee turnaround in the beginning, because on top of the pandemic, I didn't have all my processes in place. I was still creating those as we went, and I was still learning, and my staff were teaching me things. I was learning how, to treat them and how to properly pay them and how to incentivize them. And that came with time and a lot of mistakes and failure. So, we had a lot of turnaround in the beginning, but I'm grateful for that because it taught me from the very get-go that I had to be recruiting so heavily. I was constantly hiring and replacing people. And I know we all say that, but at the level that I was doing it at that point, it was just every single day I had 4 or 5 interviews. And that was just the majority of my day because I knew I was going to have to continue replacing if I was ever going to build and grow a staff. So having to go through that is the only way that I was able to get to 18 now, because I figured out real quick how to replace and still grow employees. And now they stick around longer, so it's a lot better. We're not having to constantly put people in and out.
The better the infrastructure gets, the longer they stay, right? Because they're more nurtured. They're getting more assistance to get their results, right? And then, hey, if they get results, they stay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
What are some of the biggest, most valuable lessons you learned throughout that time?
That's a great question. I think there's so much that I learned, and a lot of it that I learned, obviously, the hard way, as all of us do. I think the biggest thing, especially around staffing and recruiting, is that I think I expected loyalty from my employees. Like, I was giving this opportunity to them and I was giving them this great job, and I expected them to stick with me. And I figured out that, yes, that they're going to have loyalty to their job, especially if they're treated well. But at the end of the day, their loyalty is to their family, as it should be, just like mine is. And so I figured out that it's okay for some of them to leave. And if I had one that stuck with me for even a year and contributed to the team and was a great employee and was writing good quality business, and then they had to go on their way, like, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. And so that was a big learning lesson for me, and to not take it personally either.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody has that to some extent.
I mean, it seems like some of the best learnings are the ones that were the most painful, right? That's where you really take it in, and then you avoid that mistake again, and hopefully are able to actually flip it, right?
Absolutely.
Turn the obstacle into the way.
100%.
How were you allowed to open up a second scratch within 10 months?
Yeah, come on.
Was it?
I don't know. Yeah. Now that I think about it, it was another agency that was on the scratch contract, and it wasn't working. I mean, I think he was a year or two in, and he had maybe $200,000 in business on the books.
Oof.
Oh,
Yeah, it was pretty.
The first month.
Yeah, exactly. It was rough, and so he had to get out. I don't know what exactly the circumstance was, but he had to get out, and he didn't have much time. So I gave him a couple $1,000s and bought the scratch contract and started over from day one.
that's awesome. How was managing the two?
It was actually pretty easy. Yeah. I just treated them as two separate entities and staffed one, staffed the other, and made sure to keep all our stuff clean and not, cross anything over. And I guess I was really used to it. So now that things are changing and my books are going to roll up here in the next couple of months, it's going to be even easier because I'm used to juggling two different contracts.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are your expectations, and how have they changed when it comes to like employee hiring, onboarding, training?
My expectations for the staff?
Yeah. And for your team in general, like what processes do you have? So you said that you started with very little processes, and I'm sure now after hiring and interviewing 4 people a day, your processes with hiring, the onboarding, and then integrating them into your team is pretty tight now. What are you doing for that?
Yeah, we definitely try to have a process for everything. And I think the reason that we're so big on that is because I really want to scale and we've been scaling, but I want to continue to scale. And so I always think of, like, when you go places, like if you go to McDonald's, like, it doesn't matter which McDonald's you go to. You can go to one in California, you can go to one in Florida, you can go to one in Arkansas. But like, if you order a cheeseburger, they're going to make it the exact same way, because they literally have a little laminated placard that says, like, toast the bun, put on the single patty, add a tablespoon of onions, right? And it has a measured out scoop, and put the one slice of cheese. And then you literally fold it the same way on the same paper, right? So they do that so the customer knows that they can expect the same thing every time, and there's no questions and guessing and inconsistencies, right? And it enables the brand to scale. So for us, especially with my goals of having financial freedom and, physical freedom as well for me, so that I can, spend time with my family and experience life outside of the office. I knew that we had to find a way to scale all of the processes within our agency so that we could grow without me being there every step of the way. Otherwise, we would never grow. So from the time, like, a new employee comes on, we have a written out process for onboarding and what they do every single day until they're done with their training. And then after that, we have a written process for, how their day goes. And if anybody ever has questions or doubts or concerns, we can always defer back to a written process on whatever it is that they have questions about. This is somebody I thought was my lead. I was working it. So and so answered the call and closed it. Now we're in okay, that's fine. Let's just look at what the written process is for that, and that'll tell us who that sale is going to. So that I think has been really important for us, and we're continuing to develop those too, on a day-to-day basis and perfect the ones that we have, so we can continue to grow.
When were you able to start stepping back from your agency and taking days?
I would say about a year or two ago. So I was about 2.5 to 3 years in. And I think at that point I had leaders in place, and that was a big part of it for me, is making sure that even though it did cost me money and it was an investment and it did take money away from what I was able to bring home, if I was able to establish leaders who were able to make sure that things were running while I was absent, that enabled me to be able to leave. So probably the biggest thing that I do day to day now outside of recruiting is I am pouring into the leaders in my agency to continue to make them and help them be better leaders so we can continue to grow without me physically having to be there. But yeah, I would say about 3 years in before I was able to start stepping away a lot.
How did you realize I think that that's a pivotal point that a lot of agents realize, is when you're doing a lot yourself and it's like you have to take that step back, reinvest in yourself, in your agency, like hire leaders. Like that's kind of a step back, right? Like you're taking less out of the agency. So what made you realize like this was the way to go? What was that one thing that gave you the confidence, like this is the decision I should make?
I think the biggest thing I learned is that people do love to have direction. They love to have structure. They enjoy having a leader that is fully present and engaged, right? And I am fully present, engaged in my business. I eat, sleep, dream, breathe this business 100%. I'm very passionate about it. Even if I'm not sitting at my desk 40 hours a week, I'm thinking about this. I'm researching about this. And so I'm very passionate about it. But I needed somebody who could be there for my staff at the level that they needed to be at so that I could be a visionary, right? And so that meant if my staff, today they're having trouble binding some of their auto policies. They're getting a tech error and nobody can find a solution. Well, my leader is there and she's got boots on the ground and she can remote in and do a screen share with them and use her knowledge to help them try to overcome that. Whereas I can spend time doing higher level things that can help with the vision for our business. Like right now, I'm working on 2025 compensation framework for our team. And so for me, it was just making sure that my team had support and that I wasn't pushing them off on chat or something like that for things that they really needed help and training and support with so that we could continue to grow.
Super cool.
What are you doing right now for growth? Like what are the different marketing strategies that you're heavily focused on?
So as far as growth, we are definitely very new business oriented. As far as paid marketing, we do kind of a mix of everything. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. So we're doing, we drop home mailers, we do live call transfers, we do internet leads, data leads, that kind of thing. And then as far as going into 2025 in our goal planning that we're working on right now, we are going to try to focus a lot more heavily on those win backs, the cross sells, the referrals, and the organic lead sources to kind of help drive down the ROI overall for everything.
Super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. I'm focusing more on that now after not putting any energy in that for
Hmm.
for so many years. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it is. It helps drive down the costs for sure when you do. I mean, we're like half and half now between buying new leads and then using existing business, and it is such a missed opportunity to not piggyback off of both, especially because you're filling one bucket, so you might as well use that bucket that you're filling up to fill up another bucket. So it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about when it comes to, since it's on top of mind right now, with compensation for 2025? How are you
Um,
approaching?
are you talking about staff level comp?
Yeah.
So we've had, I feel like we've had quite a bit, nothing crazy, but we've had quite a bit of changes over the last couple of years when it comes to staff compensation. And I have, consistently every year restructured their compensation. And I did kind of let them know from the beginning, your comp is always subject to change, just like the agency's compensation is subject to change. So, I think prefacing it from the get-go to be transparent with them at the beginning of their employment relationship and saying this is going to change and we are going to have to adapt to the market and growth, and that's just part of the industry, has really helped with us navigating those changes. And I do try to hold any like compensation changes till the end of the year so that I can roll it out at the beginning of the year so they're not getting anything in the middle of the year or like a knee-jerk reaction from me. But yeah, we recently last year did some restructuring on that. That's been very successful for us. And so I don't plan on making a ton of changes in 2025, maybe adding a couple bonus opportunities here and there. But outside of that, I think we're running really well on what we have, and the changes we've made have been really profitable for everybody.
What
Super cool.
specific little tidbit could you give away without giving away your secret sauce that agents would benefit from
I think
with
the
regard to that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us was adding an unlocking baseline to all of our LSPs commission rates. So they get a base salary, but rather than starting their commission at 0 items and doing like a small percentage, they aren't going to unlock any commission until they unlock their baseline. And I have different categories of agents. So depending on what level agent they are, they have a different baseline. But for example, a senior agent is going to have an unlocking baseline of 40 items. So they are going to make a bigger base salary than an emerging agent, but they also are expected to write those 40 items to unlock any commission.
So 38, too bad.
Right. And they know that.
And how many have come crying?
None. Because they
None.
know I never give, I will. And there's been a couple times where I'm like, man, she's had a rough month and it's been hard for
Yep.
everyone. She's at 39 items. Maybe I should give it to her. And I'm like, then I think, is that how the real world works though? It really doesn't. What will that be teaching her? Because then when she has a bad month, a couple months later, she's going to expect me to.
Yep.
And so I've just stayed really hard on that. And so they know it's not even a conversation. They're just, man, I didn't unlock. I suck. All right, next month's going to be better. And we roll with it. And so it's worked out really well for us. And it's probably the biggest and best change that we've made to comp that has increased the production for my staff and helped keep them consistent. So they're not having, those months where sometimes we have a staff that do 50 or 60 items one month, 20 the next.
Yeah.
60, and they're like, man, if you could just stay consistent, you just stay consistent. And so we don't really see that much anymore,
Yeah.
And so I would say the unlocking baseline is probably the biggest change that we've made. It's been beneficial to the staff for their consistency in their paycheck, and it's been beneficial to the business and the profitability and revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the win-win, right?
Yeah.
Like just giving them the thing that's actually going to help them not be their own worst enemy by, loading up 1 month and only doing closing activities and then having nothing in the pipeline the next month. Right.
Exactly.
Great stuff.
What's the minimum expectation without getting fired?
Our minimum expectation would be for an emerging agent, which is kind of like our entry level agent. 22 items a month is the bare minimum on that plan. And so that plan is really reserved for people that have been with us for less than 12 months. After that, we would expect you to move up. to the next level, in which would be a 30-item baseline.
Nice. And then if they don't hit that, how consistently do they, like if they didn't hit that, for how many months before they're gone? Or do they hit
So
it?
they hit it. I don't know that we've ever had, since we've implemented this, which I want to say it's actually been 2 years since we started this. We have not had anybody who's been moved up to a higher ranking or agent level who has had trouble hitting their baseline, because we do wait till they've had at least 6 months of consistency meeting that baseline in their current position before we'll move them up, so that we know that they're capable. But they will do whatever it takes to hit that baseline, because they know that if they don't, they're not going to get any commission. So, but that being said, if it does happen, they would go on probation for a month. And we would kind of work with them and give them more support and training for that month. And the second month, if they fail to meet it that second month in a row, then it would basically be job in jeopardy, and potentially they would be demoted before terminated.
So it's no surprises.
No surprise.
They're very well aware of what's going on, which it's so important, right? They know where they are. They know where they stand. There's no question marks in the air. Love it.
Yes, 1,000%.
Cool. So what, anything else for 2025? Like what's the thought process? What can you help other agents with?
I think 2025 is going to be a lot more of perfecting what we have going right now. I think, yes, there are going to be some changes coming through as far as compensation at the agency level, and that's to be expected, and we'll roll with that. And I know we'll have to adapt some ways as far as that goes. But I think if we all just continue to hone in on perfecting the processes that we have now, a few tweaks here and there, I think that it can still be a really, really, really profitable year for all of us. And so, like I said, I think my main focus right now is going to be working on driving more organic growth. I'm not going to let off the gas on my marketing spend or my staffing and my recruiting. I plan on continuing to scale and grow that, but making sure that we have solid processes in place to work the leads that we have, that we've already paid for. And that may just enable us to purchase even more fresh hot leads. So still, new business is our number one priority.
What would you, is there one piece of advice that you'd give an agent that is looking to grow their agency or might have come into a new agency that you would, what would be the number one tip you'd give them? Or her, or they?
So I would say the number one tip I would give is something that I was told whenever I first started, and that is just focus on sales and new business and growth, and let everything else fall to the wayside. Okay, so if you don't only have so much time in your day and you're a new agent, maybe you only have a couple employees, then that means that you need to be on the phone selling, and you need to be closing deals, and all of the admin stuff and everything else, the business running stuff, is just going to have to get pushed off until after selling hours, because the number one priority is always going to be sales, because we run a sales organization. So I think if we put that at the forefront, making sure that we're feeding our business and growing our business, then everything else will fall into place. We just need to make sure that the new business is the number one priority.
100%.
That's it.
That we got to grow.
So if anybody's looking for insurance in Arkansas and happens to want to get a hold of you, and they actually listen to this, which would be odd, but let's throw it out there.
It's hilarious. Yeah, then give me a call.
Yeah. How can they get a hold of you?
They can give us a call, 479-306-7006. They can email stephanieriggins@allstate.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was awesome. Your whole story is crazy. I can't believe the 2020 story. But
fun times.
Yeah, but you pushed through. I mean, what a cool kind of a cool time to get into it because of the phone situation. A lot of people were answering phones.
Oh man, contact rate was so good.
They were home for sure.
They were
Yeah.
home. They were home, but you built a awesome organization and super cool that you could spend more time with your family. So great work.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for coming on, Stephanie. We really appreciate it. And I know that this is definitely going to help other agents and get them pumped to grow.
Yay. Love that.
Yay.
I appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you.